Welcome to the Vera show where testimony, reality and truth meet you at the front door. Perspective to propose. Politics, religion, we talk about the real world we live in. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it on the Vera show. From purpose, uplift, encourage, inspire, motivate, and let's talk about it on the Vera show. The Vera show.
Hello. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard, but we've got some technical difficulties going on. Hello. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard, but we've got some technical difficulties going on. Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you, Vera, tonight?
I am great. You know what? Do you hear that double?
I hear it off of.
You know what? Do you hear that?
Yeah, I hear it off of your system. I hear it off of your system.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Okay, I know what it is. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. My YouTube was on. And so that's what was happening. Okay. Well, good evening. And I'm so glad that you are here. We're back. And today we're talking about something that is so important. But before I start, let me share a little bit about Terry. Terry Hauser is a visionary entrepreneur, international speaker, holistic healer, and a formidable advocate for survivors of intimate partner violence, IPV. With a career spanning over 30 years as a high-level corporate executive and business owner, Terry pivoted 2 decades ago to the healing arts, founding a premier holistic wellness center. Her life's work is dedicated to the architecture of restoration, the profound belief that through a holistic approach, a self-healing such as sound therapy, hypnosis, bioenergy work, and mindful practice, the human spirit can mend even its deepest fractures. And today we're going to talk about one of those fractures. But before we do, Terry, I'm going to give you the floor and let you kind of share some things. Now, when you were here before, you shared about your background and growing up, which is how I usually start most of my shows. You being a second-time guest, I'm going to give you the floor and let you speak from your heart as to what you want to share.
Sure. In case we have some first-time listeners, I'll just give a brief background about me. I grew up with very loving parents, but it was a complicated environment that I lived in. And my father did everything in his power to sort of shield us. But when he left us for work, we were left with my mother, who would be diagnosed today as a manic bipolar. Back in those days, they called it the woman's disease. But she was, it was a little rough living with her, because you never knew what was going to trigger her or what you were going to come and land in. We used to say when we would come home, we would come in with our heads ducked, because she was one of those throwers. She would always throw things for us. But as children, we naturally sort of always look and we lean towards our parents, because they are our primary givers, with absolute trust. And we rely on them to teach us who we are and what we need to know. And hopefully that we will gain some wisdom and knowledge from all that. So, but as we are guided, it also it starts developing our characters. And with that becomes sometimes with some deep anxiety and stress, and sometimes it digs into the foundation even more corrupt, bringing out sometimes their survival instincts in a child at a very young age. And with that early conditioning, it leads right into some core problems. And I want to talk a little about that today, because we find sometimes struggling as adults, and the exposure that we have to deal with things, that kind of exposure as a child then starts creating generational type situations. And in my book, Unmasking the Monster, we focus on not so much, I mean, I do describe it in very raw content, by the way. If you read the book, it's in raw content. But there was some underlying things that I discovered that I didn't know prior to the relationship in the beginning, because the beginning started as like every other kind of romance. It's like all sparkles and glitter, and I call it like a kaleidoscope effect, where there was always something exciting, new, and happening, and that's when it's all fresh, and we all get sucked into that. But sometimes a child's upbringing then starts triggering when other events happen that surrounds the environment. And in my particular case, it was COVID. COVID was the trigger. That it was seconded by a diagnosis of cancer on my partner. And, sometimes we don't intentionally break down, but every person is different when they handle those kind of pieces of news. And psychologically, it did impact him. And that's when it started to all come out about his history and his path in growing up, which was not a good environment. And it caused a lot of chaotic household for me. So I always refer to COVID as my house of terror, and surviving that whole process. And we, as a survivor, you instinctively always fall back on what you learn as a child. And as much as we don't like to sort of talk about it, because there is a whole community of it growing up, especially baby boomers, is like, you don't talk about it. You keep it, you hide it. There's so many secrets. My family had a mess of it, that everybody was like, that was in a hush hush place, and you shut the door, you don't talk about it. And now that I think nowadays we've become, especially with the internet and stuff like that, we've become more open, and we want to talk about it because we are healthier when we talk about it. And domestic violence and intimate partner violence is not something that can be handled in a passive way. We it's a dangerous, it's like a myth almost, you could say, and it's a dangerous concept to embrace. And there's a lot of things that you need to start questioning, and we're going to talk a little bit later about that, all the little red flags that come up, so that you can take a better approach in your relationships. You look at them with,
Yes.
I used to love rose-colored glasses. Remember back in those days? We
Yes.
walked around with the rose-colored glasses. Yeah, you got to take them off, because today we're going to just shatter that all together in this episode.
Yes. Yes. And abuse rarely begins with physical violence. It often starts with subtle shifts in dynamics. Identifying these early warning signs is the first step in reclaiming your sovereign agency and stepping away before the pain takes root. And that's
Right.
what we want to talk about today.
Yeah.
And there's so much to deal with this topic. And I want to start with the first thing that one needs to consider, and that is trust your instincts. So, you want to kind of talk about trusting your instincts.
Sure. There is, there's a reason why they call it gut instincts. That's because it's located like right below the chest of the breastbone. Okay. And it's your stomach area. When people say they get butterflies, or oh, they feel like so much acid, it's just going to explode on them, and those are your gut instincts. So if something's telling you something's not right, then it's not right.
And
Because,
oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Because the day I got married, I had that instinct, and I heard clearly, you should not be doing this. I heard it clearly, but
Mm-hmm.
it was the
Mm-hmm.
day of my wedding.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
And
I
then
just,
and then all those feelings of guilt and shame and everything else comes into you. And in all reality, that's probably the biggest hurdle a victim has. They're an abuser. They don't think about that stuff. They know what's going to trigger you, or they know what's going to control you, because it's all about that control. And there's you've got to push through all these layers, especially if you're in a situation right now and it feels like you're just so heavy. You got to push through these layers, such like gaslighting or love bombing. Those are some of the first early signs here, because those are the light ones. Um,
talk about it. Talk
because,
about it.
oh my gosh, because it'll just ruin your self-esteem. Um, for me, it even made me start questioning my own. Am I going crazy? Is it me? Maybe it is me. I'm gonna talk to you about a little bit of a gaslighting situation that I experienced, and it is my book. So I tell these different stories so that you can recognize them. But we went, and this was during COVID, and this is when they used to have um, times set aside that you could go grocery shopping. They had it broken in our community. They had it broken down at certain times. Certain age groups could go grocery shopping, and you can only have like maybe 20, 25 people in the grocery store.
Mhm.
And we went in there, and I went to pick up some meat for the house, and the butcher from the back came out with some fresh cut meat, and he was laying it out into the coolers. And so I was asking him if he had this kind of meat or that kind of meat, and he was working with me, and he ran back and got something and brought it back. And when he came back, that's when my ex-husband come up, and he goes, what's he giving you the special treatment for? And I'm like, he's not. I just asked him for some fresher meat. And I says, because we want to freeze it so that we have it and we don't have to worry about it down the road. And he says, oh no, he went back there and he did something special for you. Um, and he's literally talking this way, and the gentleman was right next to me, and he looked at me, and I apologized for his bad behavior, and I just moved on, and we finished groceries, and we were checking out. And when we were checking out, I noticed the butcher come up to the front, and he was standing there talking to the manager, and we were checking out, and you just felt the energy that was coming from them, because they were like, because he had twisted my arm at the time and stuff like that. And so I know that they had to see it, because the grocery store wasn't that crowded. And so we got out to the car, and he made mention about him being up there trying to greet me. Maybe he was trying to slip me a note or something. And I told him, you know, nothing's going on. I says, this is all in your imagination. And he says, oh, no, it's not my imagination. He says, I saw you. And we got out to the car, to the trunk, and I started to load the groceries into the trunk. And when I went to close it, and he punched me right in the side of the temple, knocked me down. God. And then the manager and that butcher come running out of the grocery store and asking if I was all right. And he then just grabbed me and he threw me in the car. And then, you know, all hell broke loose later. But that is an example of what gaslighting is. They're making you think that something you did, you enticed it, you were the wrong person involved here, you know, and not even accepting the blame of his misbehavior. You know, you get confronted all the time about silly stuff, you know, and it got to the point where I refused to go grocery shopping after that, because he was always talking about the butcher, you know. And you have to just sort of find your pathway to not stir that energy up, because he was bound and determined to fight over that. And if it fought over that, then I got the raw end of the deal about it. But you got to realize the gaslighting, it's not about lying. You're not lying. You're being truthful. They're trying to make you feel like you're a liar.
Yes.
You know, and it's constantly blaming you. It's your fault. It's bad.
It is bad.
So
and go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say another example of that is when there's a situation, because I experienced that with a situation where one thing was said to other people and something else was said to me. And when it all came out in the flush, it was like I was the one that did all the agitating and all, you know, the gaslighting. And so we have to be aware. We have to be aware when you're with someone and they want to blame you for things that they may have done.
Yes.
That's a red flag.
Right.
That's a red flag.
Yeah, when the abuser tries to do, like, they want details and demand things off of you, but they're very evasive. They're hands off. And in fact, it's like you're a guessing game. But as a victim, you have to choose to survive. So you don't want to agitate that. You don't want to, you know, don't go button heads and try to confront it, because then it turns into a big battle and a big war, and usually somebody ends up getting hurt. So you have to use, when you're in these situations, you have to use the gift of discernment is the best word I can use.
Yes.
You know,
but there may be some other times where, because I know with my ex-husband, he was passive aggressive, and you never knew what was going to trigger him. Mm-hmm. The least little, I mean, he would let things pile up and pile up and pile up and not say anything. But then the least little thing would cause him to fly off the handle. And I also noticed, and you can tell me if this is real or not, but I found that during the full moon, that's when most of the domestic violence situations happened in my experience.
Yes, yes. There's because of the gravitational pull. That's why a lot of women who are pregnant have babies during the full moon.
Yes.
You know, because it does do something to the body. Also, the other thing that impacts the body are solar flares and sun flares. So it that is like the Earth is getting hit with a bunch of radiation at the time, and it impacts all of us. And if you don't think it is, then think again, because what happens when you go in and get an X-ray? Why do you think they stand with steel plates around them? So they're not exposed to that radiation. So to not think that the Earth doesn't impact people on the Earth, it's incorrect. So there's a lot of
Ab-
science behind a lot of this too.
Yes,
But
yes.
yeah.
And let's move on to the whirlwind romance.
The whirlwind romance was short-lived, but um, it was. I mean, there the gifts, the love bombing, those, and the very quick. They want to be quick to move on things, and the tension, the sometimes it's almost, particularly because I was a businesswoman. So it got in the way sometimes. It's like, no, you don't always have to show up. And yeah, it's nice. Just wait until I'm at the end and then come get me at that point or something, but they sort of like smother you. It's like
Yes.
this smothering. And a lot of that is because of their own insecurities.
Right.
It's like they have a hard time being by themselves. So, and this is where the jealousy starts kicking in. If you've got a partner that is like ridiculously jealous and you can't even look, and I mean, I can give you another example where somebody asked me a question, and when we were shopping, and I didn't notice this in the very beginning, and this happened way before COVID, and so does this look right on me? Does this not look right on me? And we were shopping in a men's store, and it's like, well, I'm in a men's store, and the man's asking me what my opinion is. I'm going to give it to him. It doesn't
Right.
mean anything, but there was just an outburst, and he threw everything down on the counter and walked out the door, out of the store. And so those should be little red flags now. I'm talking about little red flags that start going up. And also when they're communicating with you, is another one, is that they want to know all about you, but they don't want to share anything about themselves. It's
Red
like
flag.
red flag. It's like if you're being vulnerable with each other, vulnerability goes two ways. And so if if you think you can be super vulnerable with them and open them up, nah, it's not going to happen. Of course, there are shy people, and I'm not going to say that, categorize them all like that, but you need to be careful with what you're thinking. You can't fix. I was a fixer. I was a healer. He walked into my life because of that fact. And so my first thoughts were always, what's the root of the problem, and let's get down to it, and we'll fix this and make you the best person you could possibly be. And sometimes that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And I'm not saying it doesn't there's been some occasions when you can turn people around, but for a personal relationship, no.
Right.
If I want to be a coach and counselor, that's fine. So it goes that way. And also when they want to start isolating you,
Yes.
from your friends and your family. That's another big red flag. When you're supposed to go to a party or a family event, and then all of a sudden, nah, let's not do this. Let's do this. You know, I love baseball, and so the biggest thing is, he would go, "Hey, I got 2 tickets. We don't have to go do this. We can go do this instead. We can go see your friends anytime, but we can't go see this game." So that was the carrot in front of the donkey for me, because I love
Hmm.
baseball, live baseball especially. You
Yes.
know, so but there's a lot of, when things start getting dramatic and they become argumentative, and like maybe a punch in the arm, you might not think about it at the time when it happens, but it does. Those punches start hurting, and you better start thinking about something else. You know.
Absolutely. And another point I want to make was something that you said earlier. We can't change anybody. We are only responsible for ourselves, how we relate, react, and respond. So if you are in a relationship and you see that there's some issues and you're thinking, oh, I can fix that.
Mhm. No, no, you cannot. I like to say this: you can't heal the unhealable, and they have to first want to heal themselves. And if they
Absolutely.
want to heal themselves, then they're open to change. And when they start throwing change at your face that you are trying to manipulate them or to control them, when they try to flip that script on you, that's another big red flag. Just you just can't heal them. And it's up to you to decide if you want to get in or get out. And you don't want to get too far in there, because getting out is much harder when you're too deep. And
Yes, yes, yes. I had a family member that was married to an abuser for 30 years, and she tried in many ways to get out of it. And we even took her, and she stayed in another state to try to get away from this situation, but always ended up going back, always. And a part of that, a lot of times women will say, well, I'm staying because of the kids.
yeah, oh no,
And
uh,
that's the reason you should be leaving, because you don't want to scar your children with that abuse that they are seeing and experiencing with you.
yeah, and you don't want to expose them, because if you have a child that's going to jump in to try to defend you, then that child becomes a part of that domestic violence picture.
Yes.
I didn't have children that jumped in, but I can tell you I had a dog that jumped in and tried to. He was just a little Chihuahua. He was like a 9 pounds Chihuahua, but he got into the back of his calf and took a chunk of meat out of him. But he paid the price too. But it's
Mm.
then everybody involved becomes a victim in that situation, and you don't want to turn the family into a domestic violence family, because
No,
then it's not teaching that child anything. It's just you're exposing them to abuse, because you don't know what happens afterwards. I've heard many stories, um, people opening up to me, trying to heal and find their way back in their own healing, from the trauma. But you don't know what that child's going to remember or what's going to trigger that child, because then I don't like using the term PTSD, but just because it's the term out there right now, you don't know the trigger, because you still get the triggers. I've pretty much been able to put everything to the side, but when I talk about this, it's like watching a movie screen in front of my face. I see it happening all again, and I handle it differently. But what does a child? The child doesn't know. Again, the child looks to you for the guidance and the understanding and the direction to move. So if you're exposing them this kind of violence, you don't know what that's going to do to that child later down the path.
Exactly. And in addition to that, that child may become an abuser themselves because that's what they've seen. And it becomes a vicious cycle. And that's when we're talking about generational trauma as a result of children being exposed to all that toxicity. And it can also create major health issues for that child.
Yes. And you'd be amazed at how much like intestinal issues that happens, or headaches because of the stress. They don't understand how to process the stress. And it also impacts their learning ability. Talk about narcissism and what narcissism does to the brain. That's like narcissism to the brain that's of a victim. It's like heroin does to the brain of a drug addict. So you just, and that when your stress levels is, and you can relate to this, when your stress level is so high, you're not thinking clearly. All you're thinking about is surviving the moment. You talk about living in the moment. A victim in an abusive relationship is surviving from one episode to the next. And if you have a day that has 3 or 4 of these episodes, what does that do to your brain? Just imagine that. It's the stress levels is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And one of my symptoms was my stomach. I had major stomach problems, colitis, ulcers, all kinds of things as a result of being in. And I was only in it for 3 years, but that 3 years tore me down. I lost everything I had, the confidence, the self-esteem, the positivity. I mean, all of that went down the drain because you're in such toxicity that it can destroy you mentally, physically, emotionally. And that's why what we're talking about today is so important.
Yes.
So if you're listening and you know someone that's going through this stuff, tell them to chime in. Have them join this particular show because this is some powerful stuff. We're telling you what the symptoms are, what to look for, the red flags, but we're also going to give you some solutions of things that you can do to either get out of it or prevent yourself from getting into it in the first place. That's what we're hoping. We're hoping that you're going to see these red signs.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you can get yourself, remove it. And I want to digress a little bit about what you say, how some people will go back to that situation, and a lot of the times is because they don't know where to turn. So we're going to tell you today too, where to turn to get help. So it saves you, gets you out of it. Now, my case in COVID, I was stuck because there was nothing available at the time, but that is not the case today. There are organizations, there's a national organization, and that goes everywhere. And each usually in all the, and Vera has this reference guide available for you on her site for this, but it's the National Domestic Hotline, and it's 1-800-779-7233.
I'm going to leave this up for a minute.
799-7233. There's your starting point. And then they can help get you to where you need to be. I do not know of a state that does not have some kind of IPV or domestic violence hotline available. And then now, I've just been in police training for the state of Maryland, though, but they're retraining their officers now on handling this. And it's called a soft handoff in the hospitals, where they take you and they give you to an advocate that works with these things. And most police departments now are forming those kind of departments within themselves, so that they're handling domestic violence differently.
Well, that's beautiful. And I'm glad to hear that, because oftentimes police officers will come and be involved in the process and not do anything at all.
Yes.
They may have the one person leave,
But that doesn't solve the problem.
but it doesn't solve the problem.
It doesn't solve the problem. And also they can separate it, but it's like an immediate fix. It's like getting the Band-Aid out and putting it on the scratch, but it doesn't. You need to look deeper than that. And it's not always at the police. It's these other organizations that can help. There are legal teams in a lot of these organizations that can help give you advice. And a lot of this is free. All right. So it's if you need it, it's there. Just start. You got to open up the door for yourself, though. You got to make that phone call. And I know sometimes making those phone calls are not easy. Myself was the same. I had to plan around it just to try to get a 5-minute call in. And if I could get a 5-minute call and he would come in the house, then I would hang up, and they knew, because I had a reoccurring hotline call coming in all the time, and they log those in, and they keep record of how many times you call in. So definitely make that your starting point if you need help.
Yes, and if you can't make the call for whatever the reason, you can text 88788. 88788. If you're unable to make the call, but you have your cell, you can text 88788. And if you have a problem remembering that number, just remember the word START.
Yes. Now, if you do get the opportunity, go ahead.
I was going to say, and in Maryland, there is the House of Ruth in Maryland. And that number is 410-889-7884, or Ruth, 410-889-RUTH, which is 7884.
Yes, they were my lifeline in my case. They were my lifeline. And they have a perfect blueprint of how to make this work for you too, because they strategized with me to get out, and everything was lined up. So that day that trigger was pulled and I could get out free and clear, that's the first place I headed. It's just like, because they were holding everything, because you can't keep anything for yourself. Now, this is part of the strategy too, is that you start working out all the little pieces that's needed. And once you get free, you got to cut those lines. You got that they can track you by your cell phone. Okay. So you got to, leave that behind. So I had gotten a burner phone that was kept outside of the house. So didn't even know where that was at, and I had a bug out bag, which gave all my medicines that I needed, and clothing for a couple days. And because you don't know if you're going to get back to that house or not. Now, it was my house, and he came into my house. But when the time came, this is where the system failed me. The police officer didn't make him leave. He made me leave, even though it was my house. So you have to be prepared for all that kind of stuff. You got to think about those kind of little things. And again, now, if you work with the National Domestic Violence Organization, that there are a lot of information out there now. What do you need to have in that bug out bag? In my book, this is where my book also not only tells you the story, but it helps you through these different stages. Everything is like sort of in one. And so it's like cutting the telephones, abandon your social media. And the last thing you want to do is then go onto social media and blast. You want to, don't do that. You got to keep yourself very private, very quiet, and throughout this next phase after you, it's considered the aftermath. So you need to keep yourself outside of that. If you have bank accounts, change the passwords. All your passwords need to be changed, because the first thing they'll start doing is they're going to attack you, and anything that they know about you, they're going to attack you that way. So you need to make sure that you change all those things.
Absolutely.
About a couple weeks before I left, I think it was instinct that it was getting time that I needed to get out. I needed to pull that trigger. And, I started to do all that about a week or two ahead of time, changing my passwords and like that. And when he would come back and say, I need your password, it's like, oh, well, something got hacked into my system and they made me change my password. You start becoming clever with your own excuses. And you just evade it, and just keep evading those questions with them.
Absolutely.
Because there's a whole digital stalking now that goes on.
Yes. Yes. And I remember I dated a guy, and one day we were on my porch, and when a child found this recorder, this guy was monitoring my phone conversations. He had wired my phone somehow and was in on every phone call that I was making. When I saw that, that was the end of that relationship. That was it. So little things, I'm telling you, some of the other things, the sabotaging independence, wanting you to leave your job or drop out of school or abandon your hobbies. That's a part of control and isolation.
Yes. So the other thing I'd like to address, because I know we're coming up on our time, is the rise of the teenage intimate partner violence is increasing. And just to let the viewers know, there are sheets on all of this that you can download from Vera's show platform. But here's the scary thing, and these are statistics that are starting to come out. In teenage relationships, 1 in 3 females will be in an IPV situation. And this is teenagers. This is the age from 15 to 18. And 1 in 10 males. Now, for adults, it's 1 in 4 and 1 in 7. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men. So now that is a scary statistic.
It is
for our teenage girls. And those two, if you know something's going on between maybe your daughter or granddaughter or niece or whatever, and her boyfriend, get her help. You got to get her help, because that's only going to suck her into an adulthood relationship like that. And
absolutely,
it's scary. It's really scary. It's pretty much the same as for adults. All the love bombing, the narcissism. We have got teenage narcissists out there. Okay.
Yes.
It's scary. Oh my gosh.
And being able to understand the different types of narcissism. You've got the malignant, which we're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing in our country right now. But you've also
Exactly.
there are um, other types of narcissism that you might want
Mm-hmm.
to research. My son was involved with someone that was narcissistic, and he did all this research, and he said, "Mom, I know what the problem is." And of course, he ended that
Yeah.
relationship. But
And,
I have grandchildren that's a part of that. But
yeah.
anyway,
It's, yeah. It's a sad state. But the signs, the whole jump on the bag when soulmate trap. That's one of them. Where but they're my soulmate. They're like the perfect person. And yeah, right. Well, keep an eye on that one. Then again, if
yes,
that soulmate wants to isolate you and not allow you to hang out with your friends or do things with your family, I mean, those are all little red flags here. And then the pressure for intimacy, the borderline rape. Okay, it's like you've got to be careful with all that stuff. Being forced to do something that you don't want to do. That's
yes.
that's fine.
And that was
The
the thing
toxic.
that made me leave my husband. When I was and one of the other things is losing your self-esteem by them
Mhm,
shattering it. And when I
mhm,
was 4 months pregnant, he said to me, "Oh, well, I just can't stand your body." And
mhm.
so we didn't live as husband and wife from 4 months. My son was 3 months old, and I made the comment to him, "This is abnormal. We're married, and
Right.
we've had nothing to do with each other since I was 4 months pregnant." And he went ballistic. And he started yelling at me. He grabbed me and he shook me, and it's like, "You want it, you want it, you want it now." And when that
Yeah.
happened, I immediately called my friend that lived in San Diego. She came and got me and my son, and I
Mhm.
stayed with her for a couple of months because I first he did it in front of my son, and my son was only 3 months old. So my son
Mhm.
wouldn't know. But the fact that he did it in front of my child, I knew
Yeah.
I was not going to raise a child in that
That.
environment.
Right. Right. And I think that you bring up a very good point. There's that misnomer that there is no rape within a marriage. That's not true. I
No,
mean,
it's not.
consent is consent. And mine used to use it as punishment. It was called wifey duties, and it's like it was the punishment side of things, and it's not. And realize that it breaks down your self worth really
It
quickly,
does. It does.
and it's humiliating, and it's treated as that, as a humiliation. It's not love involved in anything at
Not
all.
at all. Not
Yeah.
at all. Let's kind of talk about some things that people can do. This blueprint of freedom that
Mhm.
you have, because we're gonna run out of
I know, I
time.
know. That's what we did yesterday on that Tuesday. So there's different things that in the healing process that I incorporated. Fortunately for me, for my situation, because I practiced this and I did this, so I was able to keep myself grounded to some degree. But narcissism still attacks you, and you still have those kind of issues. I still dealt with a lot of trauma and healing it. But breath work is beautiful to help you through one point to another, and the breathing techniques. And there's so many different kind of breathing techniques. Then there is sound therapy, which is your crystal bowls, your tuning forks, or even just music on YouTube. You can pull. There's so much out there these days on YouTube where you can just pull, the different sound. And I'm going to say this one because it's 528 megahertz. This is the healing sound for so many different things. And YouTube has so many different variations of it. And I particularly enjoy the crystal bowls because of the bonging, and it allows you to focus in and then just balance out, and you breathe, through each one of those times those bowls are hit. The other thing is tuning forks. So it is a tuning fork. It's a vibrational C, the tone C. It's 670, no, I take that back. Excuse me, 67 megahertz. And when you hit that and you put it on your breastbone, it just vibrates through your entire body, and just your body just naturally relaxes through that. So there's a tuning fork. It's great for kids, by the way, if they are very hyper. And if you teach them how to use tuning forks on themselves, and you'll see them banging it and putting it on themselves all the time.
That's
and then
amazing.
The other one is, yeah, tuning forks are amazing. It looks like a toy to them, so they love it. And I work with a lot of kids in my center that just, where's your tuning forks? They come in and they want the tuning forks.
That's awesome.
The other thing is hypnosis. So there's a lot of guided meditations out on YouTube, or that you can listen to. So you want to find something that sort of soothes you, and they mix it with music nowadays, and it's very, very soothing and will help you. The other is aromatherapy. Who doesn't like lavender and smelling it, and chamomile, or even, you can eat lavender. So I used to make lavender for my grandchildren. I put lavender seeds in pancakes and then put maple syrup over it. And it's so delicious, but it's very calming. So, and drinking right before you go to sleep, drink lavender tea or chamomile tea, and this helps reduce it. Even in the most chaotic times, it still helps. Every little bit helps.
Yes.
And then, then we, we have a little bit more time. The spiritual aspect of all this.
Yes.
And through this time frame for me, I discovered prayer and the gift of prayer and what it brings to your soul. And I got reintroduced to Psalms, and particularly Psalms 91.
Yes.
My father growing up, used to say, if you need an answer, flip open Proverbs, close your eyes, and flip until the page doesn't split anymore, and then you'll find your answer on that.
Yes.
And so I used to do that, and it reintroduced me at that time frame to that, because those were areas that he wouldn't touch, which was amazing. It's like when I would whip these out, he didn't bother me. I even laminated Psalms 91 on a card, taped that to doors, inside cupboards, anything. So when he would explode, I would just rip it down, and I would say it 3 times. I would read it out loud. I would run around away from him and read that. And then by the 3rd time, he got exhausted and he would leave. And so that was it's one of my tools.
Yes, I'm telling you, the word is powerful. And also, when you are in the midst of that stuff, for me, just saying, peace, be still.
Still.
Peace, be still. And I literally saw change, more so in me, because I was able to maintain my peace in the midst of all this confusion, which it takes 2 to argue. And if you're in a peaceful state and you're staying calm, they've got to go, or they're going to leave you alone. And Psalms 91, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. That's how that scripture starts.
Right.
And I mean, it includes, he will give angels charge over you. Oh, I'm telling you.
Yes, it's very powerful, and it was my shield. You have to build up those golden shields, and I always asked Archangel Michael, please just pull him away from me, and just reaching out to those that are of higher energy, higher sources for you, and tapping into them because they do help. Now, the other thing that's very smart to use, if you have someone that you can confide in but not interfere, okay, because interference can cause more problems than it can good. But in my case, I had a few people that, because he always took my telephone. So we would, if I could get out a text, I would pre-text these people and then I would just hit the send button. For my son, I would always say, are you working late tonight? So, because my son lived far away from me. And so that way he could call dispatch and have somebody dispatch.
Wow.
My one friend, I would say, Zeus is at it again, and that was my dog's name. And she also knew that she needed to come and send somebody. And then, or another one I had, HRU, how are you? That was our signal. So if he had asked me, now what's that mean? Well, how are you? That's all I'm asking her is, how are you? And so those were all signals. So establish coded singles or signals so that you don't have to say much, but action will be taken on your behalf behind the scenes.
Yes.
And yeah, so because you really want to get and find some safe space, and that's one of the ways of getting there. But again,
Yes.
Talk to the hotlines. They do have safe houses around, and I didn't know it at the time, but like I had a safe house. I ran to a police station that was closed. To remind, if I would have known, be able to talk to them, there is a safe house just 4 blocks away from me.
Wow. And you had no
I had
idea.
no idea.
We've got 3 minutes, and there's one other technique that I want to share as well. When you find yourself in stuff happening like that, there are tactical things that you can do to calm yourself and to get your nerves intact. And one of them is rubbing your fingers together across like this, holding them together like this. And I'm sure you have some others. Yes,
Yes.
those things
Yeah.
work.
The other thing I used to do is tap underneath my
Yes.
nose like this. With your middle finger, tap underneath your nose. And that calms you down also. So there's a whole tapping routine.
Yeah, there is. I went through some training on that. I mean, like tapping here and here and here, and yeah, yes. So we have really talked about red flags. We've talked about what you can do to prepare yourself to get out of the situation. And we've talked about some things that you can do while you're in the midst of the storm. Terry, this was invaluable. And what I'm going to do in my Facebook group, I'm going to put this information in that. It's called Instilling Greatness in Our Children. But there may be some parents out there that are dealing with this stuff. And so I am going to post some things in my Facebook group. And I'm going to give you the floor to say a couple more things before we close out.
Yeah, I would just suggest that you're not alone out there. And there are places that you can reach out to help. In my book, I address with, Unmasking the Monster. It's a true story of my experience or surviving IPV. But I do have a website, and it's www.tnhhauser.com. And if you have any questions, there is in the tail end of that website, there's a place where it sends me an email, and you can just fill out that and send it to me, and I will respond to you.
Very good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Words can't express how honored and happy that you were here with me today. This was a very important topic that we probably need to revisit periodically,
Exactly. Yeah.
because a lot of people are suffering and they think they're suffering alone, and they think there's
And
no one out there to help them. But help is there. You just
yes,
got to know how to find it. And one of the
yes,
ways is the hotline. Let me put that, as a
yes.
matter of fact, um, let me, what I'm going to do before I close, let me put these things in the chat so people can find it.
Yeah, and it's not. And if you download those flyers that Vera is going to be posting, you'll see that number all over the place.
Yes,
So
I'm
we even have a
definitely,
little tearaway that you can put in your wallet if you can't, because I understand about privacy and trying to keep things in low profile. Okay. So there's just a little tear off thing that you use, and you can fold it up and put it inside your wallet so it has the necessary numbers with you.
yes, yes. And with that, I'm going to say thank you and God bless you. And we will see you again next week.
Again,
So have a great weekend, everybody. And Terry,
bye
you have a
bye.
great weekend as well. Thank
You
you.
too.
And
Bye.
hold on, hold on.
Okay.
Don't leave me. Okay. All right. So God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.
Let's talk about it. On the Vera Thomas Show. The Vera Thomas Show.